So the Sony ULT Wear headphones, it's something a lot of you guys have been talking about. And today we're going to see how these headphones perform and if they're just about bass or so much more.
Namaste, we're DHRME. Definitely headphones require measurement. To every
breath you take. Okay, that was the wrong key. Okay. All right, starting with build. We have a very XM4 style plastic build here. Now on the XM4, there was some problem with the build quality, and that was the breaking of the headbands. I have a feeling this is also going to happen with the ULT, and this is the reason, because once you lay them flat like this, they are flat. But if you go the other way, they go almost flat. There's a good chance that people are going to break this by trying to push them all the way. Trust me, they don't go all the way. But other than that little niggle and problems that people might have, you get all the good stuff that the Sony touch controls and general controls afford you. So for example, you get the two buttons, which is the noise cancelling ambient button, the power button, and of course you have this nice shiny rainbow button, the ULT. We'll come to that in a bit when we talk about sound. So those are the only three buttons. The right side is a touch control surface. Up for volume up, down for volume down, swipe right for track control, and left also to go back a track. So in terms of controls, pretty decent. I think the touch controls are on par with the XM4 controls. Not as good as the XM5, but guys, XM4 was a flagship in its time and it was pretty good, so happy about that. Now you will also get a foldable set of headphones, which is great because they take up less space, and you also get a nice solid shell case. In the case you have clear compartments for storing your cables. You get a 3.5mm headphone jack to 3.5, and you get a massive USB Type-C cable just to charge these headphones. So nothing out of the ordinary, but unlike the CH720, the cheaper version of Sony's headphones that don't come with a case, well, these do. Now in terms of the color, well, we have the green one here, and I'm not sure if you can see this is green, but there are definitely more
colors. Yeah, so let's take a look at what colors you actually get these headphones in. So they're not very inspiring. You've got this color, which is what they call forest gray, and then you can also get them in this white, what is it called? Broken white, and you get them in black. That's it. Nothing else. So not incredibly inspiring when it comes to colors, but you get three options. But like we know from Sony, these guys might actually, produce the ULT in limited edition colors. And what about battery life? So let's take a look at those numbers. The advertised number is 30 hours with ANC on. In our tests, we got 32 hours and 42 minutes. Now this was with ANC on, obviously, but also using the LDAC codec and ULT1. ULT1. Yeah, if you don't know what that is, then you gotta stick around for a little longer in this video. All right, and we obviously tested the phone calls. Well, Rowan did.
Okay, the Sony ULT Wear in breezy and windy conditions. This is the wind speed, meters per second. Let's go. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. One, two, three. Back. All right, we have the Sony ULT ULT headphones with cars passing by. A microphone test in noisy conditions. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3.
And to me, they sounded pretty good in noisy conditions. They held their own. The voice clarity was pretty clear, except when Rowan started speaking softly. Then you would hear more of the ambient noise and the cars whooshing by, etc. But otherwise, decent pair of calls. And that kind of held true for the windy conditions as well. Good, except for when the wind started to pick up. And what we mean by that is when it started going past the 3 meters per second mark. So overall, a decent pair for calls, guys. And for the fuckman out there, you do not get mute directly on the headphones, but you do get the ability to change volume and ANC mode from the headphones.
Now let's talk about the looks here and how these look. I think again, if you've seen the XM4, you know what you're getting. It's pretty much the same. It just feels like on every front compared to the XM4, these are a little less premium. So for example, the ear pads, they feel a little more firm and not in like a premium kind of way. The XM4 ear pads feel nice and, you know, plush. Other than that, the overall build quality is also a bit creaky. It's not creaking right now, and the headband adjustment does have those discrete ratchets for you to adjust them to your preference.
What can we say about the active noise cancelling on the ULT? Well, we always rank our headphones on a tier scale, and we've slotted the ANC on the ULT in tier B. So they're not fantastic, they're also not crappy. They're nicely in the middle, and they make for nice entry-level or gateway pair of headphones for ANC. So decent, right guys? They will suppress quite a bit of your environmental noise, but we did compare it to the Sony XM4s, and it didn't quite suppress as much of the low ends. Now the XM4s come in at tier A, a tier higher. But for transparency though, these are leaps and bounds ahead of the XM4 at tier A. They're very, very good. And we would slot them not just anywhere in tier A, but at the top. So we just didn't put it in tier S because the overall volume of your ambient sounds were suppressed a tiny bit. But what we will say is that the clarity of the voice and the environmental noises was very natural. So we would have no problem wearing these and going about our business throughout the day, because what your environment sounds like is what you hear through your headphones. Only thing, they were a little bit lower in volume. That's the only thing. But you can change a bunch of things also for ANC in the app, right, Rohan?
And it's got all the features. It's got all the vomit. It's got every feature you need. You have a bunch of customization for sound. You have the ambient sound control. You have an equalizer, and the different thing about the equalizer is that you do get Alt Off, Alt 1 and Alt 2. We will talk about Alt Off, Alt 1, Alt 2 in a bit. I'm going to really nerd out about that, so prepare yourself. But other than that, going back to the app, a bunch of extras as well. As we said, there is multi-point, which has been available for many years now on Sony headphones. They connected two devices simultaneously. However, you cannot connect to two devices simultaneously if you have LDAC on. So you're going to have to downgrade your codec and sound quality to actually connect to two devices at a time. Other than that, a feature you often see skimped on cheaper headphones is the wear sensor, which lets you play and pause your music automatically when you wear your headphones. Happy to see that that has not been skimped upon. I can't really see the wear sensor in these headphones, but it is there, and you can also see the settings in the app here. So that's nice to have.
All right, moving on to sound quality. So a couple of things to say first is the codecs. You get LDAC and AAC, that's it.
Now these do sound darker than the Sony WH-1000 XM4, and we are going to switch to our graphs here. This is the kind of the sound of the ULT Wear versus the Sony WH-1000 XM4. This is with Alt Off, and I've done that on purpose because we are going to talk about Alt, don't worry. But this is the default kind of tuning, and you see that it's definitely more bass focused, a bit darker, and it doesn't have this kind of 3-5K boost that the XM4 has, which makes overall the sound darker, but you can see that they're from the same family, especially in this region. The mids are a bit similar. Even if you're not into this whole alt bass concept, these still sound pretty decent, just a bit darker. Let's go to bass analysis. So you saw 3 settings before this, but something I didn't talk about was there is a second setting on top of that first setting. So let's just go look at the sound app here and what you get. Yeah, so there we go. So if you go into the settings, you have the 5-band equalizer from Sony, but you also have 2 things. One is a bass control slider, very vague wording, easily enhance bass frequency sounds or whatever, and then you have the clear bass slider. Now all of these settings, the alt and the clear bass, affect the sound from 0 to about 150 Hertz. So it's important to know that the clear bass effect is different from the alt effect. And that can be sometimes confusing. But what does the clear bass do? Thought you'd never ask. The best way to see what clear bass does is to check the measurements for clear bass on -5, -10, 0, 5 and 10 with the alt off setting. So let's go and do that. So we have the alt off. So this is -10 and the +10. And you see a yawning gap between these two graphs. Interestingly, the bass very much bleeds into the mids here, with the -10 setting having a bit more mids right up to the 500 Hertz mark from where the graphs converge. So expect to notice your vocals a bit more, well, much more because of the absence of the bass. As we start adding the clear bass back, we notice that the slider does its job well. The whole bass spectrum from about 10 Hertz to 180 Hertz is affected. So let's draw a line here. Yeah, that's about 180. And you can see that that's where it's really affected. But it's really the mid bass that has the biggest impact. But big deal, you say, all other Sony headphones also have the clear bass. Yes, that's true. Let's take a look at what alt does. Again, let's control for clear bass by comparing the alt off, the alt 1 and the alt 2 settings with clear bass on 0. Clear bass 0. So this is alt off with clear bass 0. This is alt 1 with clear bass 0. And this is alt 2 with clear bass 0. That is not right. Yeah, that is right. So it might look weird, right? Like you might be wondering, hey, these two look kind of the same, almost exactly the same. Funnily enough, yes, they are the same. Yep, that's a shocker. The alt off is clearly different, but alt 1 and alt 2 are basically the same setting. It's just the effect that the setting has on the clear bass slider that changes. So alt 1 and alt 2 on clear bass are exactly the same. Same for them with clear bass on +5 and +10. Let's take a look. So we have alt 1 with clear bass +5 and alt 2 with clear bass +5. You can't even distinguish the graphs. They're exactly on top of each other. The only difference between the alt 1 and the alt 2 setting is that the alt 2 can't turn down clear bass to under 0. That is it. And this is what you can access from this alt button over here. What this button does is it switches between alt off, alt 1 and alt 2. And whatever changes you made to alt 1 or to alt 2, it remembers. So for example, if you had alt 1 on +1 clear bass and alt 2 on +4, it would remember that. If it was 0 and 10, it would remember that. So you can change how the bass sounds by just a press of a button, which is ingenious. So this is what is happening underneath the surface. We thought you nerds would enjoy that.
Overall, if you ask me how the Sony ULT sounds, I think they sound exactly how they're priced, just like their ANC. I mean, ANC headphones are kind of bass forward headphones, so going by that assumption, one thing I would watch out for on the ULT is that they sound a little bit dark. As we said, you will probably not get a very open sound, but that's actually not why you're buying these headphones. You are buying them for the bass and those ULT settings. We talked about the graphs and stuff. Now how they sound, they do sound very deep and very bassy. Not my cup of tea, but I think people buying this and those who are used to the XB line of Sony already know what they're getting into. So for those guys, I think these are a good buy.
All right, these headphones come in at $199 list price. But like we know from Sony again, they discount them quite often. And there are certain times throughout the year that they get discounted at, and now being one of those times because it is Prime Day. And so we've seen them go as low as $158. So check out the link in the description to see what it costs right now on Amazon for you. But guys, anywhere between that $150 mark to $200 is actually good value for money because you're getting a decent build quality in the headphones. You're getting a foldable construction here with an included hard case. These are comfortable to wear for longer periods of time. The microphones are really good in outdoor conditions, as we saw. There is multi-point support, albeit at the cost of LDAC. The ANC is mid, we'll give you that, but the transparency is really amazing. And you get all of Sony's goodness in their app. And the sound is actually quite decent, even if you disregard the whole bass feature. So there you have it, guys. This is a go from us. A great pair of headphones. Well done, Sony. All right, guys, that brings us to the end. And just to mention, Sony did not send us this product. There was no money exchanged.
Next level influencer shit. Don't want the product to send us money.
You buy your own shit, but we'll pay you. Okay. Sony did not send the product. They didn't get any input in this video. We bought it with our own money. And the reason we're able to do this is thanks to you guys, our patrons and members. So thanks a bunch to our tested tier folks. And
to our fuck man, lovely fuck man, Gamma Panda and Paula, thank you very much for your support. You've been wearing it ulta.
And we've been DHRME.
Do we?
Do we?